I've been in Red Hook since 1951. That's really when my life started here. What happened before that is just that I lived in the suburbs. I came here with my husband when I married him, and my father was very much against it. He said, "I don't think you should marry a farmer. Stay here with us and be a secretary." No, no, no. I felt a little self-conscious, like people were all involved with each other, and I didn't know what to say because I didn't have the same background that they had. And but then finally another family moved nearby. The father bought them a farm close by, and we became friends, which was more to my liking. And actually my mother-in-law had done the same thing. She was from Westchester County when she married Sid's grandfather.
Father. My grandfather.
Your grandfather, yeah.
G. Gordon Mead.
Yeah, G.
Yes.
Gordon Mead. And so she came into the same situation, but she was so sweet. She was just lovely. Eventually, I realized that I had come from not a community, but a suburb, where people get up in the morning, go out to work. They weren't just all right here. And that explained why I felt so like a fish out of water. I was volunteering and in the Red Hook school system. I was doing PR work for different things that came up, mostly issues such as the building of the Mill Road School. You know, we went around and talked to people about how needed this was for the children. They were practically coming through the windows because the old central school was so crowded. I wanted to have a career. I became a reporter, and I just kind of learned as I went along. It was good for me because it taught me how to focus on what was happening and hearing people and paying attention, and then spewing it back off again. I was a news reporter for the Register-Star from Hudson, the local bureau, and also at another time the Gazette-Advertiser, which is now defunct. And that was something that I really enjoyed, and what they gave me was an old stacked typewriter, and I got to be really fast on that thing, and I banged the carriage back and forth. And my husband said that's the way I got rid of my aggression, was doing that.
With a typewriter.
But I really enjoyed that part of it, because then the next morning you could get the paper and see my name as a byline. That was a kick. I became a volunteer for the town on land issues, and we were revising the zoning for the town. And we had a consultant who, unfortunately, was from Albany, and he wanted to cut the town up into housing units. I mean, and at that time, farming was, in his mind anyway, was considered to be views. That was the only thing that was important to him. They made view-sensitive spots where you weren't allowed to put anything in front of the view, so that, And Bob Gregg, who was a prominent farmer down the road, and I kept telling him that farming is a business, it's not just a view. And then anyway, we wrote the open space plan, the agricultural part of it. Then after that phase, I stopped my career. I came back to the farm, and I became the retail manager here, because we were just developing pick your own, and we had a little farm stand, and Chuck and Sid started growing. Was Sid still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They started growing more vegetables. At first it had been strictly fruit. The farm was a general farm to start with, and by the time I got here they had just discharged their final cow, which my husband used to milk every day. And this is a good story. I don't know, Chuck usually tells this story. Do you want to tell this story?
Sure, I could tell that story.
Yeah.
My dad and my grandfather milked cows in the big barn. They had Guernseys.
Hands.
Oh, of course. Well, maybe we need to say that. They melted by hand. And the milk went to the railroad siding, which is right near Max Agway now. And the milk would get picked up in cans. And I don't know where it went to get processed, but it went somewhere. And but then sometime in the mid-'30s, they tore up the railroad tracks. The
Hucklebush.
yeah, it was commonly called the Hucklebush Railroad, but it started in Rhinecliff and went up to Hartford. And so the milk had to go somewhere else. So they obtained a hand crank separator that you pour the milk on the top and you turn the crank and cream comes out one spout and skim milk comes out the other spout. And the skim milk was fed to hogs. They raised hogs.
Was that here or everywhere?
I don't know. I know that that's what they did here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about other farms, what they did. And then the cream was sold, they had a route that they would go around. And so my mom's aunt lived over near Tivoli on 9G, just past Kidd Lane, and she was one of the cream customers. So correct me if I'm telling this wrong. No. So that she decided to fix up her niece with the good-looking cream guy. And so the rest, as they say, is history, and I look a lot like the milkman. So, well, if we go back to my grandfather, he bought the farm in 1916. He grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. His dad was a builder. He wasn't a farmer. He had a business degree from Yale. He went to New York City and he was working, we don't know exactly what he was doing, something in business in New York City.
He was like on Wall Street.
Yeah, maybe he was, yeah. So, but at some point he decided he wanted a farm. And so he went to Cornell. They had a 2-year course for people who didn't grow up on farms, so they didn't have the experience. So he took that course, and because it was for folks without experience, you had to work all summer. You know, it was a full 2-year course, so the summers you had to work on a farm. So the first summer he was on a farm somewhere near Hartford. The second summer he was on a Teeter farm, which is about 1.5 miles over here, kind of off of Starbarrack Road. And he found out that this farm was on the market. So he talked about wanting to come back up here and look at the farm and wanting to decide if he was going to buy it in time to plant some crops that year. He did buy the farm in 1916. And so my dad was born in 1924. He has an older brother, older sister, and 2 younger sisters. And Dad graduated from Red Hook High School in 1942. He went to Cornell that fall. He came home for Christmas break, and he didn't get back to school because they really needed him to work here on the farm. They were short of money, and if he went back, he would have been drafted, which he wanted to go fight, but they really needed him here because his older brother was already in the Army. And so anyway, my dad and my grandfather, they worked together, but it wasn't always easy, I guess. And so when my grandfather turned 65, which that was in 53, something like that, he retired, which is a little unusual, but he retired and my dad took over. And so, my dad, as my mom had mentioned, he didn't want much to do with livestock, so he got rid of the cows, the chickens, the hogs, all that stuff went, and he planted more apples. Well, my grandfather, I don't know that he really liked the livestock either, because he didn't grow up farming, and we had a neighbor who used to tell my brother and I when we were small how poorly my grandfather had always treated the draft horses. And but I think it was just that my grandfather didn't grow up with it and the neighbor had, so it was kind of second nature for him.
I became the retail manager here for, quite a few years. But after a few years, my husband died. And then Chuck became the farmer. Farming no longer was just a view. It's now considered like a cause. And this is good for us because people are interested, they're asking questions. They're asking about our covenant, which Chuck can talk about. And it's been very good for sales, which is, that's what we need. It is a business, it's not just a view.
When I was Oh, probably when I first started high school, I thought farming was way too much work. Little did I know. I thought I wanted to go into forestry. But by the time I was a senior in high school, I decided that I wanted to farm and went to Cornell. But I took a year off, traveled some, worked with my dad the rest of the year. And then I graduated in 78. And then sometime in 80, Dad wanted to make me a partner. So we were partners for a long, long time. And and my dad didn't want to stop working. He kept working until almost till his 83rd birthday. The young farmers that I know around here, I think, well, one would be Ben and Lindsay at Hardy Roots Farm, which is in Claremont, but it's close enough. They started in Red Hook. I think they have a lot of business sense, and they know a lot about farming too. So I think that a lot of the young farmers are going to make it. And back to what you were talking about, Mom, about the land conservation. There's over 4,000 acres in the town of Red Hook now of agricultural land that's under easement, so it can't be developed for residential or commercial, used for agriculture. So, and you were involved in that in a lot of ways, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And all of our land is under conservation easements.
How many acres?
185 acres. Yep. So, so somebody will be farming here for a long, long time.
What about regrets?
Oh, regrets. Over the years, I have just forced myself to change and to change and to change and to change. I'm just almost, well, I'm sure I'm not a different person, but I certainly think much differently from what I did. Well, I'm in a more stable place. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's a good thing.